We can start anywhere you want, but I'm thinking maybe you tell the audience what is CE5.
Oh, CE5. Okay. So CE5 stands for Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind. So I guess I should take you through the whole classification system. So close encounters of the first kind is when you see a UFO in the sky, right? The second kind is when there's some kind of physical evidence that is left behind, like a crop circle or radiation or just some kind of tangible, um, imprint that's left behind. The third kind is when the occupants of the craft are seen, right? The fourth kind is when a human is brought on board uh, a spacecraft. So, like a contact experience or an abduction. And then the fifth kind is human initiated contact. So, this was coined originally by Dr. Stephen Greer, who created the whole global disclosure movement. I've done a bunch of films with him. I owe my career to him. And he had a near death experience when he was a kid, and he went into this state of cosmic consciousness.
Hmm.
And then, having survived that, he wanted to figure out how he could revisit that state without having to die. So he learned transcendental meditation and became a meditation teacher. And so he was experiencing these amazing blissful states without having to actually die. So that's handy, right?
Yeah.
And so then one time he's meditating up in the mountains and these extraterrestrials show up and they were very interested in this human who was, entering these transcendent states, and they brought him on board their spacecraft, and together they sort of co-created these contact protocols. So the way he teaches it is, you meditate, and then you actually do these remote viewing protocols where you're, remote viewing these other civilizations in space, and then you're showing them your location on Earth and inviting them to come visit. And so hundreds of thousands of people have had tremendous success doing this. But I would say that some of the most successful CE5ers don't do any of that. They can just look at the sky with an intention and stuff will show up. Like the most amazing stuff will show up. So I would define CE5 as just sending an intention into the universe that is coherent enough for another civilization to pick up on it and respond.
Fascinating. So, have you, two-part question. Have you done it before? And also, there's got to be some skeptics in my audience that are saying, what the fuck? So, is it also possible that it is a trick of the mind, or like you people who try it are tricking themselves? Is there a possibility in that? And have you done it?
Yeah, so I have done it, and actually the craziest experiences I've had were in MacArthur Park in downtown Los Angeles in the middle of the day in a crowded park, and there was a group of people, and we had cameras with telephoto lenses, and we were just putting out the intention to make contact, and these sort of like they looked like trans-dimensional Chinese dragons. They were like these metallic, pulsating, snake-like things appeared in the sky. And we have video of it. I could try to find the video and send it to you so you can include it in this. I don't know. I have no idea where the video is, but I'll try to find it. So that was really, really cool. But yeah, I mean, of course, like if I'm going out with the intention of, okay, I'm going to make some kind of phenomenon appear in the sky, and I do whatever my meditation is, and then I look up, I'm going to notice things that I wouldn't have noticed before, right? So there'll be a satellite or a planet that's always been sitting there. I mean, but now I think it's a UFO or whatever. So, when people get into this, we teach them like, okay, you want to get a satellite chart, make sure you're not looking at a satellite. No, that's not a UFO. That's Venus. That's always been there. Like you're just noticing it now, but it's actually always been there. Um, but what where it gets really interesting, and what I always look for is I'm not just looking for a light in the sky. We're looking for something that is moving anonymously and
Autonomously,
non-noticeably. Yeah.
anomalously. Okay.
Anomalously, yes.
Yeah.
So if something abruptly changes directions, that is not something that a plane or a satellite is going to do, right? We see things that are jetting around the sky, pulsating. Um, but then it gets even crazier. We've actually had flesh and blood ETs materialize in front of the group. We've had people be healed. So in our film, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, we tell the story of this guy, Ed Moen, who is in one of these CE5 meditation groups in Oracle, Arizona. And the group saw what they could see with the naked eye was sort of like this red orb, right? But this guy, David Marconi, who's a famous screenwriter, he took a picture, and in the picture, you could see this like mantis-like being standing next to Ed. And Ed was deaf, and this being healed his hearing. So there's like crazy shit like that. But like if you go on, like every country, every city has a CE5 like Facebook group. You can see the images that people capture. Absolutely crazy, crazy stuff. But I always say, don't take my word for it. Like just go out and try it for yourself. You've got
Hmm.
nothing to lose. My longtime collaborator, Serena DC, she was like one of my best friends, and she's now done like 10 UFO documentaries. She was living in the UK. She watched CE5. She said, "Oh, this sounds like a bunch of bullshit, but I'll try it." She went outside with her husband, tried it, looked up. There was a giant UFO over her head. The next morning, there was a crop circle next to her property. She moved to Los Angeles and tracked me down and said, I want to make UFO documentaries with you. So like she's now like my best friend. And
That's cool.
and it's because she was skeptical, but she went and tried it and it fucking changed her life.
So if anyone out there is listening and they're just going, "What the fuck, man?" But they want to try it. Can you? I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but can you just Google like how to do CE5 and it'll tell you how to
Yeah, yeah.
do it?
There's like, so you just watch our movie for free, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, and it kind of gives you a framework, right? But you just go on YouTube. Dr. Greer has so many like free videos and stuff. He's got an app for $10 that has like guided meditations and stuff. But if you don't want to spend $10, there's tons of stuff on YouTube. There's this thing called the CE5 podcast that's really good. And, so there's lots of resources out there. Go on Reddit, you know?
So I know Dr. Greer is an important person in your life, so this may be like a touchy subject, but what about the people out there that say that Dr. Greer is a fake or he's a CIA plant, he's a government plant? What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, if he's a CIA plant, I don't know where the misinformation is that he's putting out. He seems, I've stuck by him for 10 years because as far as I can tell, and again, we're all human, and we all have to use our own discernment,
Yeah.
but as far as I can tell, he's putting out the most complete and legitimate and consistent information. And so I don't see where he's compromised, where the message is compromised. I just don't see it. And also just knowing the guy personally, it's kind of unthinkable to me that he would, because this is someone who just doesn't take shit from anybody and had
Hmm.
so many opportunities to sell out and refuse to do it. Like we're seeing this weird thing right now where um, the disclosure movement was always the sort of grassroots anti-authoritarian movement. And in the last couple of years, we're seeing these like high priests of ufology getting anointed. And it's these guys who all have security clearances. And they're like, well, we're going to give you the authentic disclosure. And, like historically, we've always distrusted these kinds of people. It's like this is an obvious kind of psyop. And if Steve wanted to, do that, he could easily sell out, and then he'd be the one on 60 Minutes, and he'd be the one cashing in on all this stuff,
Mhm.
I just don't. It's just like it doesn't compute for me. But yeah, I mean, people are gonna say all kinds of shit, and that's fine.
Yeah, yeah, cool. And so for anyone listening who does not know, can we briefly bring them up to speed? Like, what is Dr. Greer's biggest claim? Is it kind of the Area 51? We've had craft for a while, we're reverse engineering it, we're in touch with aliens. What's he telling
Mm.
people?
I mean, so there's kind of like two sides to this, right? So there's the CE5 initiative, which is all about teaching people meditation and kind of a spiritual philosophical framework. Um, and it's like, well, we have these civilizations that are visiting us. Um, we're we need to basically become peaceful ambassadors. Like right now, the current power structure is actually shooting at these things when they enter our airspace. We shoot them down, we retrieve their craft, we reverse engineer their technology, we actually have ETs in captivity. We do really, really nasty things. If these were hostile civilizations, they would have annihilated us in a nanosecond if they wanted to. They've showed this like Christ-like patience with us as we like shoot at them and blow them up and kill them and whatever. And then like use their technology to make weapons. This is
Is
all,
it really believed that we shoot them down?
yeah, 100%.
I've never heard that before.
Oh, really? Oh, well, yes.
I thought everything
Yeah.
was like, oh, it was a crash landing and we recovered some stuff like Roswell.
No, no, even going back to Roswell. So if you look on the FBI website, there's a bunch of UFO documents that have been declassified, and the most viewed one is a very short one. It's a field report. It's called the Guy Hotel memo. Um, and it's a field report from an FBI field agent, Guy Hotel, and anyway, he's talking about the crashed saucers, but he mentions, oh yeah, the Army was testing a new radar system. So this is a euphemism for a what's called a longitudinal, God, I can't speak today, scalar weapon system. So basically like a directed energy weapon,
Uh-huh.
right? So we were fucking around with this kind of Tesla death ray, and you can Google Tesla death ray because Nikola Tesla wanted to end war forever by creating the death ray, right? And just a weapon so terrible that it would make war obsolete because everyone would be too terrified to mess with this. Well, anyway, we were having fun with this, and we knocked these things out of the sky probably accidentally. It interfered with their radars, with their navigation systems, and so these two craft crashed. And what's kind of cool is like you can look on the front page of the Roswell Times. You had General Ramey, who was the guy on the scene. Like first you had real reports go out saying, "Oh yeah, there are some crashed saucers and some dead bodies and all this," and then they had to walk it back and say, "Oh no, it's just weather balloons, whatever." So this guy, General Ramey, was the guy kind of put in charge of the scene, and he called up the Roswell Times at like 1 in the morning and said, "Send a photographer over." And so they took this famous picture of him kneeling in front of a weather balloon, right? And this was them just debunking, oh, it's just a weather balloon, nothing to see here. But he's holding in his hand a telegram, right? So Danny Sheehan, who's a civil rights attorney who used to be the attorney for the Disclosure Project, he actually tracked down the photographer who took that picture, and they had the negative, and they were able to blow it up and then use AI to read the telegram in Ramey's hand, and it says, "Take the discs to Wright Field and bring the bodies too." Now that's Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, but at the time it was called Wright Field. So like we know this is real. We know they've got that Roswell was real. We know that they've got dead bodies. They've got living ETs in captivity. Now recently we've got Jake Barber who's come forward as a whistleblower. And this guy was part of, I mean, this is like like I'm sad that like your audience is like this is your first exposure for some of them because I'm just going straight into the deep end. I can pull it back.
We're going deep right away. My
Yeah.
audience is not used to this, but we're going
Okay.
for it.
Okay. I'm sorry. Well,
Please,
uh,
please go deep.
so okay. So this new whistleblower, Jake Barber and his team, they're called Skywatcher. You can look them up. But they've come forward and they're basically talking about how we've been using, they call them psionics, but this is basically a weaponized form of CE5 that's going on inside of these black budget programs where they are training people who have psychic gifts to do CE5 and make contact with these civilizations and invite them in, but then kind of like telepathically hijack their craft, force them to materialize so they could be shot down with EMPs and retrieved. And they're doing this to about 3 craft a year at the
Whoa.
facility that Jake Barber works at.
And where
So
is that? Area 51, Roswell?
no, it's not Area 51. That's a different location. So,
Okay.
but
Do we
these bases
know?
are scattered all over the place. But like, the way to like if this sounds like completely fucking crazy, let's take a step back, right?
Okay.
So
Okay.
have you ever read Autobiography of a Yogi?
I have not, but I've heard of it.
You've heard of it. Okay, it's a really great book. It's Paramahansa Yogananda. It's the guy who brought yoga to the West. Um, And so in that book, he talks about growing up with these swamis and gurus in India. And he talks about the miracles that these people could perform, right? How they could levitate and they could teleport and they could dematerialize and rematerialize and they could bilocate, which is when you're you're in two different locations at the same time, and they can communicate telepathically. Well, what are UFOs doing? They're levitating, they're teleporting, they're dematerializing and rematerializing, they're bilocating and they're communicating telepathically, right? If you look at the Catholic tradition, you got the saints talk about the same shit, right? They're levitating and all this stuff. So all these world religious traditions tell us that as we purify our consciousness, there are these abilities that we can develop. So that's what we're dealing with these ET civilizations. You're talking about civilizations that have millions of years beyond us to develop their spirituality. So they've developed these abilities, and now these abilities are manifesting technologically. So consciousness is completely fully integrated with their technology, which is why when we shoot these things out of the sky and these crash retrieval teams bring them back and they look at the metal under a microscope, that metal is so pure that we could not replicate it even in a vacuum in space because these civilizations aren't manufacturing a UFO the way we would build a car on a Ford assembly line. They are
Mhm.
literally materializing these things out of the fabric of space-time through consciousness. So these atoms are actually coming into existence, coming into this dimension and forming into this UFO when they want to travel in it. This is why these metals are so pure because these atoms literally just came into existence. And so that is why we can connect with them through CE5. That's why it's so effective. Again, don't believe me for any of this. Just Google CE5 and look at what people are experiencing. Look at the photos and videos and again, there's a lot of fake stuff out there, but everything in our film was shot by people that we have a relationship with. So we can validate, we can vouch for them. And then, but it's still, don't even believe that. Just go try it yourself.
When did your film come out?
That came out in 2020.
Okay, pretty recent.
Yeah, and I thought nobody would see that movie. I thought this is way too crazy. And then it like was fucking huge. And then Demi Lovato started doing CE5. And then she actually did a whole TV show. I forget what it's called, but she did a whole TV show, I think on Peacock, where
Wow.
she's just going out and doing CE5 for a whole
And
season.
did you watch any of it? Did they
Oh yeah.
manifest
Oh
anything?
yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah.
Did some orbs or anything show up on her show?
Yeah, they got some really good stuff.
They got
Yeah.
some good stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got two questions that are going to go in completely opposite directions. So you
Yeah.
can
I'm sorry. Is this way too crazy? Is this even usable? Is this
this
a
is
thing?
fantastic.
Oh, okay.
I hope everyone is sticking with us because I'm not stopping and I'm not editing this, damn it.
Oh shit. Okay.
So, but tell me, you probably don't know this. You may not know the answer to either of these questions, but I feel like maybe you're the person who would have maybe done some research. Question one, where do they come from?
Hmm.
Don't answer that yet. Question two, hopefully you've researched this, but if you haven't, totally okay. How does one purify their consciousness enough to be able to manifest physical things into reality?
Yeah. Cool. All right. So, who are these beings and where do they come from?
Yeah,
Well, so some of them come from distant star systems, right? So when we say ET, we mean, or extraterrestrial, we mean like, flesh and blood from the third dimension, from another planet, somewhere out there, sometimes millions of light years away. People confuse these things with angels, demons, interdimensional beings. And again, if you're going to travel millions of light years, you have to be transdimensional. So a lot of these civilizations will appear in ways where they can be confused for angels or demons or ghosts or whatever, but they're actually extraterrestrial. Um, some of them are also time travelers. So, like some of them will actually tell us, hey, we're actually you from the future and you need to get your shit together.
those are the
Right.
grays, right?
So there's so many theories about the grays. And the truth is, this is where my kind of expertise kind of stops. If you watch my documentaries, I don't spend any time talking about, oh, this race has this agenda and this race has that agenda. Number one, because I have no idea, right? But also because um, like my focus has always been on what have humans done in response to this phenomenon. What is the fucked up shit that we do? So my documentaries are about the military industrial complex, fascism, media manipulation, suppression of technology and suppression of consciousness, and also on human potential. What is the potential for our consciousness?
Yeah,
And the answer to your other question is, like how does one, develop these abilities? It's through meditation. That's what it is. And but there isn't like one size fits all. So like if someone's listening and is really interested in getting into meditation, I highly recommend you look up a guy named Jeffrey Martin.
okay.
Dr. Jeffrey Martin, he is a professor at, is it Sophia University? He's at some university in Northern California. And basically, he spent 30 years studying enlightenment and um, like the different states of enlightenment. He calls them locations, but there's all these different, different kinds of enlightenment states. And then he's like, okay, we got to figure out like what are the most effective meditation techniques. So they studied like hundreds of meditation techniques and they did all these decades of experiments. They're called the Finder's Course experiments with thousands of people. And here's the point of this. They found that if a meditation technique does not transition you into one of these higher states of consciousness, like a transformative state of well-being within 2 weeks, it's the wrong technique for you. It's just not compatible. So you've got people who say, "Oh, I want to be a meditator. I'm going to learn transcendental meditation," and then they just struggle with it for 40 years. Or they'll learn Vipassana and then they'll just torture themselves for 50 years and not get anywhere. It's like, 'cause that technique isn't compatible with you. So you got to experiment with different techniques. And if you don't have a breakthrough experience in 2 weeks, wrong technique. Next one.
Mm.
And then the other thing he learned from all these experiments is you have to do it for minimum 1 hour a day.
Oh
Otherwise,
wow,
you're wasting your time.
it's kind of a long time.
It's a long time, but I had some crazy fucking experiences doing this. And I transitioned into what his program, they call it fundamental well-being, where the background noise of your life goes from being like general anxiety and not okayness to fundamental okayness, where that's your baseline, I transitioned into that on the second day after
Whoa.
a lifetime of anxiety and depression. So
Did
highly
you
recommend his program. Yeah.
so you took his program, like was it like an online class or were you in
Yep.
college?
Yeah, that's online class. Anyone can do it. It's like a 6 week program where you try a bunch of different meditation techniques, and like 80% of people will transition during that period into what he calls fundamental well-being. And then if you're in the unlucky 20% that doesn't transition, he's got another 6 week program, and then 100% of those people will transition. So it's got 100% efficacy.
So you're that's amazing. Your the meditation technique that you tried right away in his course, it worked for you within 2 days. Can you share like what is that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
technique?
So the technique was uh, you're following the sensations in your nose. So it's a single point meditation where you're concentrating on the finest that you can, little sensations in your nose as you breathe in and out, and you're not controlling your breath. And so for the first 30 minutes, you're just doing that. And for the second 30 minutes, you're adding, you're just noting mentally whenever a sensation ends. And so they call it noting gone. So you're saying, oh, that sensation's gone and that's gone. You don't have to say that. You're just making a mental note. But you do that in one 60-minute sitting. And so they start with that one because that's the one that like majority of people, like the most people will have success with, but then you try like 20 other techniques. So that was the one that just fucking worked for me. But again, everyone's different, you know?
I love that maybe someone out there listening, maybe they don't want to try CE5, but they can at least try the meditation and they can see if they move from like background anxiety to background unending okayness, which would also be great.
Yeah, no, totally. That's the real like seeing a UFO, that's the booby prize, right? Like the real prize is fundamental well-being. Like that's and that's actually what I've kind of realized in 10 years of being a professional conspiracy theorist is that it's actually all bullshit and doesn't really matter. And really, I should have just spent 10 years promoting meditation
Mm.
and helping people find that wellspring of peace. And
So
yeah, because otherwise, when you get into this conspiracy stuff and oh, the UFO cover up, people get so fucking stressed out and angry and pissed.
oh
And now
yeah.
you're in this dialectic with the government, and you're like, oh, these monsters and what they've stolen from us. And it's so like actually, you shouldn't get into any of that until you start a meditation practice. Like find inner peace and then watch my movies. And this way you won't have a panic attack when you find out what's actually going on and what they've stolen from us. Uh,
Um,
yeah.
so my next question, and maybe you know this, or maybe it's something that a documentary would could be shared with the world about. So to transform from the general anxiety state to the general okayness or fundamental well-being state, how do we transform from fundamental well-being state to I can manifest things with my mind, like a spacecraft, etc.,
Yeah. So
or maybe
uh,
just like some more money, you know?
yeah, well, definitely some more money. Like law of attraction's totally real, you know? Law of
Yeah.
attract that shit completely works. And I've just seen miracle after miracle in my life. But what I've realized after a lifetime of doing it wrong and being frustrated is that you can have anything you want as long as you don't want it, right? So like it's about detachment. And if you're really stressed out financially, which I've been most of my life, and like how can you detach from wanting to manifest that money if you really, really, really need it? So that you're in this kind of catch 22. So again, this is where meditation practice comes in. Because if you can find inner peace and wholeness and feel that you are whole and complete the way you are, um, and believe, and I know this is going to sound unbelievable to people, but yes, no matter what's going on in your life, no matter how fucked your life is, you actually can experience this sense of complete wholeness and complete and not needing anything through meditation. It's amazing. Then you can manifest anything you want. It's so easy because you're not in this state of needing it to happen. You're not putting out this vibration of lack and desperation, which just pushes away everything that you want. But in terms of like, how do we get to the point of like what ET civilizations have and like
Yeah.
levitating and manifesting the spacecraft instantly and all that? It's probably going to take us a few thousand years of meditating to get there. So we got to start right now. Everyone stop what you're doing, you know? And but you know, we do know that it actually is achievable because if you look at these biographies of again of saints, of mystics, of the Indian gurus and swamis, like you have very well documented cases of these guys performing fucking miracles, you know?
Mhm.
And so it's actually totally achievable. We just have all these limiting, including me, like the idea, like I have so many limiting thoughts about my ability to do that, but we all have that potential within us.
It's wild that we have this conversation today, because I just returned to my meditation practice. I hadn't meditated in a while, and my bunch of my friends were like, "You got to start meditating again." And I actually meditated this morning for like 20 minutes, but I got to be honest with you, and maybe you can give me some tips because I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to my friends. They're giving me advice. The advice is for a reason. I'm going to start meditating again. I got up at like 5:30 and I sat down just to sit and meditate and my mind was racing, man, and I was getting like feelings of like physical anxiety and I was just like, I got to be doing this wrong. Like,
Yeah.
why where'd my
Oh, no,
meditation
no.
go?
Dude, okay, so when I did the finder's course thing, right? So I did the meditation the first day. I sat there for an hour. You know, it was hard, but I wasn't like going nuts, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that's done. Day two, I sit there and I was going fucking crazy. I could barely get through it. It was torture. My mind was just racing everywhere. And when the hour was over, I was thinking, that doesn't even count as a meditation. Like,
Mhm.
there was almost no point at which I was actually relaxed and focused and and like experiencing the sensations in my nose and what. So I thought that doesn't even count. I went to a meeting with it was like a writer, like a meeting with a writer we were working with, and it was like a really annoying meeting. And then I get in my car to go to the next meeting, and I'm just like in traffic on Sunset Boulevard, and all of a sudden I just get hit, and it's like everything slowed down, and I was getting overwhelmed with this sense of everything is perfect. It's like everything's perfect. I like just love and peace. And I had to pull over on the side of the road in front of a fucking Chick-fil-A, and I'm just sitting there for hours just getting blissed out.
Whoa.
And then it turns out that this is what other people in the course were experiencing too, right? This was actually called location 2 in Jeffrey Martin's, and there's like 10 locations on the spectrum of well-being or whatever. So, but this sense of like everything is perfect, it's actually a common thing that people experience. And so, but dude, that happened after the most shit meditation, or so I thought, because my mind was just going crazy and I couldn't focus. But I sat there for the whole hour and I just forced myself to do it. So it turns out it was a really good meditation.
Amazing. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing that because I had
Yeah.
this morning I was like, was that even meditating? What the fuck just happened? I
Yeah, it
just
was. It was the probably the best meditation you ever did. So yeah,
later tonight I'm just gonna be in the bliss zone and I'm gonna go, holy shit, it worked.
I fucking hope so.
Yeah, I hope so too. So, okay, I want to circle around to the alien thing again because I know you're
Yes.
an expert in this, and
Oh boy.
hopefully the audience is sticking with us because if you get nothing else from this, then go meditate and get inspired to meditate.
Exactly.
Wake up early and just sit down and do nothing, but be present. So I want to ask you your opinion though, because this alien thing and this disclosure thing is interesting. But you mentioned the media and you mentioned the military industrial complex.
Oh
And
yeah.
so another thing that I wonder about the whole disclosure UFO thing is it could it be like psyops on top of psyops on top of psyops? And what I mean by that specifically, or you could take it in a general direction if you want, but specifically, is it actually like the military industrial complex would rather let the entire world think that we might have a UFO or we might not, but they're going to kind of leave us wondering so that no one fucks with us? Because if we do have it, we definitely got some weapons that no one can fuck with. But if we don't have it, we still got something in Area 51. So it kind of keeps the
Yeah.
enemies and all of our adversaries wondering and uncertain,
Mhm.
and it just kind of fucks with them like Art of War style.
Yeah, there's many layers of fuckery going on. Um, and so they're happy for you to think that it's all extraterrestrial, right? They're happy for you to think, oh, it's all alien because they don't want to admit that they're sitting on this technology, right? And there are some researchers who just think it's all Lockheed Martin. It's all, none of it is extraterrestrial, but the truth is it's a combination. And we know that because we have so many whistleblowers. Look up the Disclosure Project. We have hundreds of whistleblowers from inside these programs who have come forward. These are high-ranking people, and we have a consistent storyline. We have tons of documentation, tons of physical evidence and video evidence. So it's a combination. There is ET stuff, but there's also a lot of military industrial complex reverse engineered stuff, and we've had this stuff since the 60s. You know, and or probably since the 50s, right? But we've got cases. There's a case from like 1963, I think, in Oklahoma, and there was this bowling pin shaped craft that landed in the middle of the road, and this family pulled up. And they saw a guy in green army fatigues get out, and he was like, had a flashlight and was like, and then he saw the family. He's like, oh shit. And he got back inside, and the guy who was the witness was actually, his name was like Eddie Laxon was the witness. He was actually in this training program in the Air Force where he was trained to identify an aircraft in less than a second, just visually with like flashcards or whatever. So talk about the most perfect UFO witness you could possibly hope for was a guy who's trained by the military to identify aircraft, right?
Yeah.
And so this was an official Project Blue Book case, and this was like 1963 or it was sometime in the 60s. So we've had this crazy fucking technology. So now that they're starting to admit, oh yeah, okay, there's UFOs, let's have congressional hearing. Notice there's no mention in there that most of the stuff people are seeing in the sky is man-made. It's reverse engineered, right? And that is the crown jewels of the secrecy. I brought out a documentary a couple years ago. It's free to watch on Tubi and Amazon Prime. It's called The Lost Century, and it's about 100 years of technology suppression. And we show a document in there, and we show that in 1971, the United States put a national secrecy order on solar panels that are more than 20% efficient. So the US government said these solar panels that are more than 20% efficient are a threat to national security. We are seizing this patent and you're all sworn to secrecy and fuck you, right? So now 54 whatever years later, you still cannot get a solar panel that's more than like 22.8% efficient, right?
Weird.
So they have artificially suppressed the development of this technology. So if they're doing that with fucking solar panels, what do you think they're doing with magical technology from outer space, right? Because an alien spacecraft is not filling up with Exxon gasoline and jetting across the universe. It's going to pull endless clean energy out of the fabric of space-time. So like the reason for the secrecy is to protect the fossil fuel industry, to protect the global macroeconomic order, you know, and protect the status quo. And the disclosure that we're seeing now is all about protecting the status quo. It's like, okay, we can't keep this a secret anymore. So we're going to admit that there's aliens and we're going to bring this, and they have the Schumer amendment, the so-called disclosure bill, and it actually calls for the creation of a controlled disclosure campaign plan. They even call it controlled disclosure. So this is all about preserving the elements of power. Let's slow drip this out. But they're not going to admit that they're sitting on this disruptive technology. That's the real fucking secret. They're happy for you to think it's aliens because then in a few years, when they run out of, ISIS and Russia and all these other boogeymen that they're always flogging, they'll play their final card, which is the alien threat. So that's why they're happy for you to think it's aliens, because they'll eventually say, okay, give us the military industrial complex $500 trillion and we'll protect you from the evil aliens. So that's really what's
So
going on. That's now we've actually managed to cram literally everything I know into 42 minutes. So this has been like a world record.
I take that as a compliment of my interviewing skills. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So let's start to land the plane here and wrap this thing up.
Sure.
The drones, those came and went real fast, and you know, some people say, oh, disclosure is coming. They're going to tell us what everything is. The drones in around November, December last year were like a crazy topic. Suddenly, it's not talked about at all anymore. I seem to
Yeah.
remember around election time, Trump saying, I'll tell everyone what the drones are if I get in. Suddenly, he gets in and he's not saying anything. So,
Yeah.
give me some drone gossip. What do the disclosure people say? What do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah. So uh it was 100% man-made stuff,
Mhm.
right? So you had like a lot of just ordinary, unclassified normal drone tech up there. Then you had some stuff that was some crazy looking shit. You had some crazy, trans-dimensional morphing funky stuff. But even that was the man-made stuff because the stuff that we have reverse engineered is so advanced. It literally looks like magic. All right. And so it was a combination of all of that. And it's interesting that it happened over New Jersey, which is where they had the panic with Orson Welles's War of the Worlds broadcast, and it was like aliens invading New Jersey. So I thought that was kind of funny. But I don't know I'm not a mind reader. I don't know what the purpose of this was, but my educated guess as a professional conspiracy theorist is that this was them testing the waters. This was a psychological test. It's like let's see how people are going to react. Um, and we're seeing a lot of that kind of thing. But what's amazing is that we've been told, at least my whole life is, oh well, the government keeps it a secret because people would panic, and it turns out people don't give a fuck, right? Like people don't care at all. Um, we have congressional hearings and it's on no one's radar. It's like the same people who are like the hardcore UFO community, they're super into it, but ask any Gen Zer, they haven't even heard of the congressional hearings. Like it's on no one's radar. It's like, who are the Lakers playing? Like whatever.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so I mean, like one day someone will make the most realistic sci-fi movie of all time where aliens land and no one cares because that's what happened.
Yeah. So your take is basically they were testing our technology and they were testing it more in a psychological way. They wanted to see how
Yeah.
people would react and what would happen.
Yeah, and Trump knows nothing about this subject matter. He knows absolutely nothing because, Greer's in there advocating on behalf of this issue with the current administration. And these people don't know shit, and they're surrounded with disinformation agents who are feeding them crap. So we're always trying to counter that. So, you know,
If the president even wanted to know what really is going on and what technology do we have and how long have we had it, do you think he could actually find out?
he could find out, but it's really hard when his like right hand guy is Elon Musk, who's saying, "Oh no, I've got the all access pass at Lockheed and Northrop, and I'm Mr. SpaceX, and if this shit was real, I would know about it. But nope, we don't have anything like that, and there's no aliens, and like, well, either Musk doesn't know, or he's gaslighting the president. So." Again, we all have to, you know, um, we have to use our own discernment and we all choose who we're going to trust. And there's certain insiders and whistleblowers and researchers who I've chosen to trust, and unfortunately Trump has chosen to trust Elon Musk. So that's a really bad influence right there. So that's going to be difficult for us to counter, because do you think Trump has time to research this issue on his own? Of course not. He's going to rely on the people around him who he trusts.
Right, right.
So
Well, weird shit, man. I'm sure we could talk for many more minutes about that topic, but I want you to tell us, like, are you working on anything right now, or what should people
yes.
know? What projects that you already have out should they know, and what are you working on now?
Yeah, yeah. So right now I'm working on we're wrapping up the so-called alien mummies of Peru, the
Oh.
Nazca alien mummies, which are not from Nazca. They're not aliens, and they're also not mummies. They're desiccated, but everyone knows them as the Nazca alien mummies. And last year, I found myself in the middle of a giant cover-up where if you just Google the Nazca alien mummies, you'll see 100 articles saying, "Oh, it's fake. The Ministry of Culture in Peru confiscated the bodies and they tested them, and they're just dolls." And you'll see a couple pictures of these bodies, and they're wearing like dresses and hats, and they look completely stupid. And it's like, and the articles all say, "You're stupid if you believe this. It's debunked, lame, next." But when those articles, like the day those articles were coming out, I was actually in Mexico City sitting with the two original bodies. They were at my feet, and I'm looking at the articles and I'm looking at the bodies, and I'm like, yeah, that's not, first of all, those aren't the same bodies. Second of all, like if you confiscated them, how the fuck are they sitting right here? So it turns out that the Peruvian Ministry of Culture just lied to the entire world. They knew that these things they confiscated were dolls. They were made by a guy named Manuel, who I interviewed. He just to sell them to tourists, and he even told them, he said, "Hey, these are dolls. These aren't the real things." And they ignored that, and they said they did DNA testing on the dolls, and then they told the whole world these things were fake. But it turns out they're not fake. They're fucking real, and there's a bunch of them. And we did a whole press conference last year. And if you just Google this, you'll see a ton of articles. So I have a whole documentary coming out about this. But the ones that have had DNA testing are, first of all, these are all over 1,000 years old, and nobody can test that. Even the people who say they're fake, they don't argue these are over 1,000 years old.
Uh-huh.
But the DNA testing shows that they're 30% unknown DNA, which is weird, and 70% genetic hybrid of humans, chimps, and bonobos, but they could tell from the DNA this was spliced together.
Whoa.
So, like in genetic experiments. So my question is, who was doing gene splicing 1,000 years ago
Yeah.
in Peru? That's what I want to know. Was it humans? Probably not. Uh, what tribe was doing that? I really want to know what Amazonian tribe was doing gene experiments, you know? So probably an extraterrestrial civilization, but I can't prove that. That's just, applying Occam's razor, you know?
So you're
Yeah.
saying that after the DNA testing, 70% of the identifiable DNA was part human, part chimp, and part bonobo?
Yeah. Yeah.
And
But
then
yeah,
the
but spliced.
the
Yeah.
additional 30% was some type of being that was unidentifiable.
Identified.
And the bodies are really tiny, right?
They're different sizes. So there's human size ones, but the two original were just like 3 feet, 2.5 feet, or something like that. They're real small. And we brought out uh, Dr. John McDowell. He came out. This guy is the medical examiner of Denver, tenured professor of medicine at University of Colorado, former president of the American Forensic Society. He came out with his own team of forensic anthropologists, because we had all the greatest experts in Latin America, all these amazing specialists examine the bodies, and they all said these things are real. Like these were not constructed. This is incredible.
How did the
But
bodies
yeah,
last this long?
they were packed in diatomaceous earth, which
What is,
desiccated the bodies.
what's
And
that? What's that mean?
it's like, so it's this white powdery stuff. And what it does is it desiccates, it dehydrates the body. So they're perfectly preserved. So they have organs. One of them's pregnant.
Whoa.
with eggs. Yeah, it's fucking crazy. They're perfectly, they have brain matter intact. Like they are perfectly preserved. They have skin. They've got these weird metal implants made of osmium, which is a metal that wasn't even identified until like 1803 or something. So, so again, not humans doing this, you know?
And do they
Um,
have clothes on the bodies, or were they found
no,
naked?
they're found naked, and they were found in a mass grave by a grave robber, you know, who
But
lived
they
behind
appear
it.
to be, if they were stored in that type of earth that would preserve them, do they appear to be intentionally preserved?
Yeah, yeah. Somebody knew exactly what they were doing. These things were deliberately, perfectly preserved by someone who knew what they were doing.
What do you, can you share your opinion? What do you think they are? They were
I think they're genetic experiments from 1,000 years ago. And I can't say with certainty who was doing it, but I can, if I had to bet, you know, I'd say, well, okay, it wasn't any known human civilization that was doing it, so it would have to be a non-human civilization that was doing it, you
what do
know?
they look like?
Yeah.
Do they look kind of alienish, or do they look humanish, or do they
Oh,
look
it
like
looks like something out of a Hollywood prop department.
do they look like ET, like the movie ET?
So the original two that went viral, that like if you Google this, the original two that went super viral, they look just like the beings from Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the Spielberg film. It's
Oh
like the
shit.
spitting image, the spitting image. But he had access. He was given access to the Project Blue Book archives, you know, and Jacques Vallée was a consultant on that film. So Spielberg has always had access, you know. So that actually makes sense to me. But some of the other beings that we found, I was invited to go to Peru when the scientific team was taking possession of new bodies that were being unearthed. And these things, they're so extraordinary. They look like something out of a prop department. Like if I showed you images, you'd say that looks fake. But they've got bones and muscle and skin and metal implants and organs. And we brought in like not even the A team, the A plus team from Colorado, and they said, "Uh-oh, this looks real." And they held a press conference in Lima where they were telling the world that they were real. And the Peruvian Ministry of Culture decided to raid the press conference live on the air. Which I
Whoa.
mean, these like these people are so fucking stupid. It's like they've been trying to kill this story for years, and they're like, "How can we finally put this thing to rest? I know. Let's raid the press conference live on the air." So you can see these old ladies with clipboards come in and they're literally pulling the microphone out of the hands of the Peruvian journalist who's like been breaking this story. It's just like the optics of it are so fucking crazy. And they're demanding hand over the bodies, and the bodies weren't there, you know? So
It's
it was just like amazing.
it's like the Streisand effect, like you don't want to be
Exactly.
noticed and then you accidentally make it even more noticeable.
Yeah,
But I,
totally.
I, I got two thoughts on that. One is like they actually think it's fake and it's making them look dumb, or they actually think it's real and like why would they want to cover it up if that's the case?
Yeah. Yeah. I lean towards you don't need a conspiracy when human frailty will explain it just fine, you know? So like if you're in the Peruvian Ministry of Culture, you are, you know, an archaeologist or an anthropologist, you are the product of the modern education system, you've been fully indoctrinated, your identity is tied to these narratives and your knowledge about, you know, the world and our history and all this shit. So when something like this shows up that completely changes everything and is a threat to everything that you know, it's a threat to your identity. So
Yeah.
people will just do crazy shit. They will just do crazy shit to make it go away. And that's what the Peruvian Ministry of Culture did. They did crazy shit. They confiscated dolls at the airport and said they did DNA testing on dolls and then lied to the Associated Press and then had hundreds of articles printed lying to the entire world. So everyone now thinks this shit's fake. So now I have to make this documentary to try to tell the world that it's actually real. So, you know,
What do you think the metal implants were for?
no idea, man, but they're trippy. They're really,
Okay.
really trippy. They're really
I,
cool.
I'm sure
Yeah.
we can see more in the documentary. Do you have a title for it, or do you know when it will be
It's
out?
called This Is Not a Hoax, the Nazca Alien Mummies, and it will be out this summer, hopefully.
Fantastic. And if people want to,
I can send you some images if you want to put some B-roll up in this, you know.
yeah, send me some images, please.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah, and I'll use it. And do you want people to find you, or just find the movie? What else do you want to say about where people can
Oh
find
yeah,
more info?
you can follow me on X. It's my only social media at Brokeback UFO for all of my low consciousness hot takes on ufology. And there you go.
And if people want to find your movies, I guess they can go to your X page, and that'll
Just go.
deflect them.
Everything's on YouTube now, you know.
Yeah.
So we some of them are on Tubi and Prime, but I think most of them are just on YouTube. Our distributor shit the bed, so now our movies are just out there on YouTube. So you know, go for it. Have fun.
Well, Michael Mazzola, thanks for coming on the podcast, my friend.
Thank you.